we are empowering the technology within the context of a world we've been taught that we are powerless, victims of our world, that we are a flawed species to begin with, that carbon-based life in general and humans specifically are a flawed species. And through multiple generations, we have been led to believe, indoctrinated to believe that this is the case, that we need something outside of ourselves to be healthy in our bodies and to be successful in business and successful in life. So with that mindset, the development of the technology opens the door to us giving our power away from our biology and from the potential of our humanness, relinquishing that power into the technology, computer chips in the brain, chemicals in the blood, RFID chips under the skin, nanobots moving through the circulatory system, artificial intelligence, and so much more.
The rapid evolution of technology has fueled debates about its potential to surpass and redefine human capabilities, but recent research suggests a more balanced perspective is emerging. In 2005, futurist and inventor Ray Kurzweil popularized the term the singularity, envisioning a future where humans and machines merge as the next stage of evolution. This was the basis for Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, a seminal work that has captivated both technology enthusiasts and skeptics for nearly 2 decades. For centuries, the belief in humanity's inherent flaws has fueled a reliance on external solutions, especially technological advancements, to overcome perceived limitations. However, recent research challenges this notion, highlighting the remarkable adaptability of human biology. Studies from institutions like the Salk Institute reveal that the brain's neuroplasticity, its ability to reorganize and adapt in response to experiences, surpasses the rigidity of pre-programmed algorithms in machines. Furthermore, breakthroughs in epigenetics show how environmental factors can influence gene expression across generations, underscoring the unique flexibility of human biology. These discoveries suggest that humans are not inherently flawed or inferior to technology, but instead possess a profound ability to grow, innovate, and adapt in ways that machines cannot replicate, proving that human capabilities and technological advancements are complementary forces in shaping the future.
In many respects, the technology is advancing faster than our morality and our wisdom in terms of what the values are that we claim, that we share as a human family. A perfect example of this, I think people sometimes learn better through example. I read an interview with Ray Kurzweil recently. Ray Kurzweil, I think many people know, is a futurist. He's an author, an inventor, and he is high in management at Google, developing the artificial intelligence. He recently released a book entitled Singularity, where he says that we are rapidly, unless something changes, we are rapidly moving toward a convergence of human biology and digital technology. And when he was asked in the interview what that means to us, of course, we're developing this technology at a lightning speed. It's like the floodgates have been opened, and there's no stopping where that technology is going. And when he and others have been asked the question, what does that mean to us? What does it mean for humans to merge our humanness into the Internet of all things with artificial intelligence? The answer, I think, is telling, because he essentially says, don't ask me, I'm an engineer. My job is to push the technology as far and as fast as I can. He said that's somebody else's bailiwick to determine what it means to us socially. And I think it's this disconnect, and I think it is a disconnect, that we are empowering the technology within the context of a world we've been taught that we are powerless, victims of our world, that we are a flawed species to begin with, that carbon-based life in general and humans specifically are a flawed species. And through multiple generations, we have been led to believe, indoctrinated to believe that this is the case, that we need something outside of ourselves to be healthy in our bodies and to be successful in business and successful in life. So with that mindset, the development of the technology opens the door to us giving our power away from our biology and from the potential of our humanness, relinquishing that power into the technology, computer chips in the brain, chemicals in the blood, RFID chips under the skin, nanobots moving through the circulatory system, artificial intelligence, and so much more. And we're seeing that movement now. One of the things I think that sets today apart from any other time in the past, and you mentioned the new book, I opened the new book by speaking about this, is that as humans, we've always had the ability to change the world around us. You know, we sometimes not such good ways. We've clear-cut forests, we've hunted species to the point of extinction. Sometimes we can do some good things in terms of ecology and engineering. But the point is, we've always been able to look and say, if we don't like what we did, we can change that, maybe go back to what we had before. What sets today apart, Andre, from any other time in our history is that for the first time in the 200,000 years of our existence, 10,000 generations ago is when we emerged on this planet. That's really not that long ago. For the first time, we have the ability not only to change the world around us, but to forever change the world within us, to change our very biology. And when we make those changes in our biology, unlike the external world, we can't go back. Once we make the shift in engineering our immune system, for example, and replacing our own immune system with technology that creates the limited immunity for us, or very specified kinds of immunity, the body begins to say, well, maybe you don't need me to do what I did in the past. And so one generation, that becomes the way things are done. The next generation, through what we call epigenetics, next generation, children are born and the body says, oh, we don't do it that way anymore. That's a vestige of our past, because now we have a new way, a chemical base to develop our immune system. And that's just one example. So here we are at the precipice of giving our humanness away to technology, replacing our bodies with synthetics, and replacing our biology with synthetics within a context of a belief system that says we're flawed to begin with, and there's no reason not to do this, where the best science of the modern world is telling us just the opposite. The real science, not the pop science, that you see in the magazine covers in the airports and cable news network, things like that, but the real science behind the scenes. Andre, the new discoveries are showing us nothing short of the immensely extraordinary beings that we are. We are literally a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated, soft technology. The hard technology is computer chips, as we said, and chemicals and sensors under the skin. But we're more than that. As human, we're neurons and cell membranes and DNA with the ability to morph and adapt to our environment as that environment changes. And in many cases, we not only meet, but we exceed the capacity of the computer chips and the artificial intelligence. And there are studies that have been done recently. The Salk Institute here in California, for example, compared a human brain to a microprocessor. And the way they did that is really interesting. They equated the synapses in the brain with the transistors on the computer chip. And interestingly, the numbers for both are very, very close. And they made the calculations, and with the bottom line, what they found was that the human brain is 100-fold faster and more adaptable to the kinds of information that's coming in than the computer chip can be. And let me just round that out by explaining why, because this is one of the things that sets us apart. Any technology is going to be limited by the physics of the stuff it's made of. Right now, computer chips typically are silicon. If you go to the periodic table and you look at a little map of a silicon atom, silicon is never going to change. The distance between those atoms and the geometric arrangement of the atoms to make the silicon isn't going to change. And information can only flow so fast between those. It's limited by the physics that makes the silicon silicon. So you say, what is the scalability of a computer chip? And what we have to say is that the scalability is finite. And you mentioned this, Moore's law was a law referencing the doubling, not only of information, but the doubling of computer speeds and chips as well.
Every 18 to 24 months.
18 to 24 months, we now are at almost the quantum level, where it has happened so fast that we are up against the limits on a quantum level. And then you ask the question, what about a human neuron? What about our limits? And it's so beautiful because every time the scientists and the medical teams, they push a human neuron up against what has been perceived to be a limit in the past, we do what humans do. We morph and we adapt to that limit, opening a new vista, an entire new vista of potential that was unknown previously. So that when we say, what is our scalability, what we have to say honestly right now is we don't know. Right now, it appears the scalability of a human neuron is infinite, and that's only one example of where we're being conditioned to believe that the technology is our savior, that the AI and the computer chips are the savior at the cost, the very high price of relinquishing our humanness. And we begin replacing our biology with that technology. That's how you lose a species. That's exactly how you lose a species.
Scientist Gregg Braden has often raised alarms about the rapid advancement of technology and its potential impact on humanity. In his interviews, he warns about the increasing influence of a small group of elites steering technological progress, particularly through influential organizations like the World Economic Forum, WEF, and the United Nations. These groups have been working together on initiatives like the UN's Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs), aiming to bring about global changes through technology and social engineering. While these goals, such as improving food security and global health, sound promising, Braden emphasizes that the real concern lies in implementing these changes. Critics argue that these transformations are being imposed from the top down without proper public consent, which raises important questions about who truly controls the future. Braden further highlights the growing presence of artificial intelligence, AI, and biotechnology, particularly developments like Neuralink's brain-computer interface. While such technologies have the potential to significantly improve lives, such as enabling wounded soldiers to regain mobility or allowing people to control devices using only their thoughts, they also pose serious ethical dilemmas. One of the most controversial possibilities is downloading human consciousness onto a chip, a concept that remains far from being realized. Braden warns that pursuing immortality through technology could ultimately undermine the essence of what it means to be human, leaving society to grapple with the moral and philosophical consequences of such advancements.
All the changes are by choice. There is a relatively small number of people that view themselves as technological elite, that know better than everyone else what is good for us, what's good for our world, what's good for our human species. And it's always been that way, even before we had the technology we have today. And I've never had any problem with any of that. Where this gets concerning is those thinkers, for example, the World Economic Forum, WEF, developed 1971. They get together every year. Davos, Switzerland, we all hear about it. We see it on the news, the private jets going in and the mysterious meetings and all of that. And they have every right to get together and think about the world that they want. These are elite business leaders, CEOs of major corporations, major financial institutions, government leaders, things like that. What changed is in 2019, they formalized an agreement with the United Nations through what is now called the UN SDG 2030, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, 17 goals that are intended to be implemented within 5 years now, because we're now almost 2025. That's not very long. The goals are beautiful goals when you look at them by title. Things like food security and child health, planetary, global child health. I mean, who doesn't want that? We all want that. Now, you look at the fine print and you say, how are they going to achieve those goals in such a brief period of time? And the level of social engineering that has to happen if they are going to achieve those goals is staggering. It is nothing short of a social revolution. I personally don't want to live in the world that they're proposing, a world where everything is digitized, everything is controlled, everything is run by AI. AI is making decisions for our health. AI is making decisions for all of these things. So yes, a relatively small number of people have these visions. Most people in life, if I go to I live in a rural area in northern New Mexico, beautiful part of the world. And when I'm home, I go to my local food co-op. That's where I get to connect with my neighbors. Really good people, Andre. You know, most of them their lives are so full with raising their children, working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to put food on the table, keeping things together. They don't have time to think about this stuff. So they don't know the specifics of what you and I are talking about. What they do know is that the world is changing and it's happening too fast. And I had a woman actually say this to me. She said, it's that the changes are not chosen by us, they're happening to us. And so their answer is to pull back. They're saying we need to slow down. They're pulling their kids out of public schools to teach them the values that they cherish in their family. They're growing their own food, less engaged in the banking system, less engaged in traditional forms of finance, retirement, jobs and careers, all of that. That's their answer, is by going back to the basics. So yes, it is a relatively small number. However, they now have the ability. The policies are being written as you and I are having this conversation. The policies are already in place. And some of those policies now are being made into law. And that law, just the way we have lobbyists for oil and gas industry and pharmaceutical industry, there are now lobbyists lobbying for these sustainable development goals in the U.S. Congress and in the European Union. That's what changes everything. These are unelected officials. We didn't ask them to represent us, and we didn't ask them to what their ideas are for a better world. They have assumed this position through the use of their own or misuse of their own power. And now these policies are being imposed upon us. And the insidious thing is it is done so slick. The marketing is so slick and sexy. I know what's happening, and I'm still in awe when I see the YouTube, commercials making this stuff look so sexy. For example, they're targeting young people. You can put a computer chip in your brain, and with no wires, you can communicate with your keyboard and play all your video games. And the young person is going to say, sweet, I can play my video games and never touch the keyboard. And they say, yeah, you can do that. And they say, well, who doesn't want that? Because they've never been taught what the price is they're paying.
Because we also don't know fully what the price would be too.
Well, we know from the laboratory experiments, the horrible things that happened to the primates that were used to develop the technology, that Neuralink, for example, has been reluctant. They did come forward. They're reluctant because it's not what they want to emphasize. But the horrible things that happened to those primates to get to that point where it is now, FDA has just licensed these computer chips for use in the human brain. Now, there's a flip side to all this, and there always is. I love technology outside my body, and I respect technology, and I respect AI. And I think if we harness the technology, it can lead us to amazing places without giving our power and our biology and our lives away to this.
Just like any technology, any tool.
Let me give you an example. I mean, this is a beautiful thing. A Neuralink chip for a man or woman who have given their lives in service to the battlefield of Afghanistan or Iraq and been blown to pieces but are still alive to do that. And if they come home with only one arm or one leg or no legs, what a beautiful thing to take a robotic technology and hook that to a chip in the brain that allows them to have arms and legs again, to hold their babies and to love their children and to feed themselves and wash and comb their own hair. I mean, what a beautiful thing. This is good technology. So it's not the tech, it's the thinking underlying the tech, the thinking that we are indoctrinated to accept.
And the hastily reckless embracing of it without fully knowing what the potential consequences are.
This is it. We are led to believe that we are a flawed species. And they keep saying, and ultimately, the ultimate goal for much of this, you mentioned without saying the word, is immortality. They're afraid of dying. And they believe that if we can develop the technology to download consciousness onto a chip.
Throughout history, technological advancements have never wiped out human potential, but have instead reshaped industries and created new opportunities. From the printing press to the internet, each revolution transformed how we work, creating new jobs and industries while addressing emerging needs. Today, AI promises to do the same, not by replacing human workers but by enhancing our ability to achieve what was previously impossible. Humanity's real challenge is not a lack of desire for progress but the limitations in resources and our ability to meet those aspirations. For instance, neuroplasticity studies show that the human brain has an incredible ability to reorganize and adapt to new technologies, allowing us to integrate AI and biotechnology more seamlessly into our lives. In the coming decades, we will likely see an acceleration in these capabilities, where humans enhance their mental and physical capacities through external technologies like Neuralink and more advanced genetic and biological interventions. The fear of job loss due to AI often stems from a scarcity mindset, assuming only a finite number of jobs to be filled. However, the world is overflowing with healthcare, education, infrastructure, and innovation needs. AI has the potential to address these constraints, helping us overcome bottlenecks that have long limited progress. Rather than replacing human workers, AI is poised to empower them, enabling us to achieve more in fields like drug discovery, renewable energy, and urban planning. Are we heading in the right direction with all these technological advancements, or are we losing something important along the way? If you found this message compelling and enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with others, subscribe to our channel, and turn on post notifications for more thought-provoking content. Thanks for watching.